All right, that's good. That's good. That's good. Thank you very much. We have a very, very long yet very exciting session planned for you. So once again, thank you very, very much, all of you being here, and I officially welcome you to day two for our CREDAI NatCon 2022 right here in Abu Dhabi. Let's give Abu Dhabi a round of applause. Thank you very much. I would like to begin our session by inviting Baman sir on stage.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I mean, we may be few in number right now. Lots of them are still sleeping in their rooms, but we can always have the Josh, right? I'm here to actually speak about an unfortunate incident that took place yesterday. Some of you may have noticed that halfway through the registration counter shut down. This was because we lost one of our members right there. He dropped. We took him to the hospital. We tried to get him back, but we finally lost him at about 8:30 last night. And I'm going to ask you to all stand up for a minute's silence. The member's name was Mr. P.V. Shanmugam. He was the managing director of KGS Developers Private Limited. He was the past vice president of CREDAI Chennai, and the current treasurer of CREDAI Tamil Nadu. He was also an advisor for all CREDAI legal issues. Let's say a prayer for his soul and thank you. Our condolences to his family, but the show must go on.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin our morning with our first session, which is Building for the Generations to Come, Sustainability. I'm sure most of you are aware that CREDAI yesterday pledged to be carbon neutral by 2050. And what better session than this to start day two. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Radha Dheer, CEO and Country Head India JLL on stage. Radha ji is the CEO and Country Head of JLL, India's largest commercial property services firm. Based in Mumbai, she drives JLL's overall direction, strategy and growth in India, one of the most important real estate markets in the world. A member of the firm Asia Pacific Executive Board and chairing the Indian Leadership Council, Radha ji commenced her role in JLL in January 2021. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for being with us today. And also, can I please invite our beloved Mr. Harsh Padodia on stage to, of course, moderate the panel as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'd like to invite on stage our speaker, Ms. Marwa Nahlawi, Head Urban Planning Development, Diamond Developers, a project which is a landmark of sustainable development in the UAE. Of course, Ms. Marwa currently heads the Urban Planning Department at Diamond Developers, and ever since joining the company in 2011, she's been playing a major role in helping in bringing sustainable city to Dubai, and of course, the entire project to life. Her passion for numbers, people, and design allows to build environment in a holistic manner. Thank you very much, madam, for being here, and we really appreciate you. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's begin our first session of day two, which is for the generations to come, sustainability.
Good morning. I would now request Marwa to kindly make her presentation.
Hello? Oh, this one's working. Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure. I'd like to start by offering my condolences. I'm really sorry for your loss. May his soul rest in peace. So, my name is Marwa. I head the urban planning department at Diamond Developers. And perfect. Which one? This one. Thank you. I was lucky enough to be part of the organization during their transition to sustainable development, and privileged as well to have been part of the design of the sustainable city in Dubai, which is what we consider our proof of concept and a living laboratory for us at the moment in our quest to develop future sustainable cities. So I've been asked to focus on the sustainable city in Dubai today, and this is what my presentation will be about. Hello? Okay. So to begin with, very simply, I'd like to go through what it means to be sustainable. Usually the definition of sustainability yeah, it's good. The definition of sustainability is, it differs depending on who you ask. But for us in the built environment, sustainability is really a development that embodies all three pillars, which are the social, environmental, and economic. What tends to happen usually is people focus more on the environmental element and overlook the social and economic part, leading to, let's say, a not complete development. So, to start with, social sustainability is really, in my opinion, the main driver that allows us to change people's behavior and change their mindsets in order for us to be able to achieve our environmental goals. So when we look at what does that actually mean for us in our cities, it literally means we are looking at how we can develop spaces that promote people's well-being and health. How can you give people what they want, not just what they need? What are people looking for in the places that they live? And usually it's all of that. They're looking for places that empower them, places that give them a sense of belonging, places where they can connect with nature and where they can lead healthier lifestyles. And ultimately, they're looking for communities in the whole meaning of the word. Now, when it comes to environmental, and this is the obvious part, which everybody's familiar with, what we've done at Diamond Developers is we've broken it down into this acronym, FEW, where we look at each of these 6 factors which we believe are the main contributors to carbon emissions. And everything else falls within these components, let's say. Food production differs from one place to another, but it's very important to look at food security within our developments. They play a large part in reducing food miles when we can maximize what we consume locally. Energy looks at demand-side management as well as generation of power. So all our cities should be designed to reduce our demand for energy, and then we look at generating power to complement that. And finally, we look at technologies that help us monitor and drive the best efficiencies in operating our buildings and our spaces. Water mainly looks at water conservation, so landscape design that is water sensitive, and then obviously water treatment and recycling. Here in the UAE, as you know, we rely heavily on desalination, which is very energy intensive. And obviously, I'll go through all these elements through the presentation to see how they are applied practically. Products refers to everything that we use to develop these cities, not just building material, but even, as you see here, we, in this case, in the sustainable city, we don't have any tarmac or asphalt roads. The reason being is that it's a lot cooler to have interlock, but also by having a permeable surface, we managed to completely forgo a stormwater network in the city. So there's a lot of cost benefits as well as environmental benefits to the products that we use. Mobility is a very important factor, so we look at how we can reduce our reliance on cars, and the best way to do that is to facilitate other modes of transportation through the design of the cities and through the operation as well. And finally, waste management. It's a way of, it's really a mindset when you start to look at how you can use waste to generate energy. Waste stops becoming a problem and becomes more of a value to us. So the most important part is sorting our waste. And at the Sustainable City, we do that by providing sorting bins in the individual homes. So it starts from there. And then finally, once your waste is sorted, we're able to generate energy from our organic waste and divert more than 90% of our waste from going to landfills. And finally, economic sustainability. So I think this is what matters to most developers. How do we develop cities that are commercially viable? There's a myth that sustainable development costs more than conventional ones, but it's actually not true. And if your sustainability strategies are taken into consideration right from the get-go of the project, you are able to manage your costs and really build more efficient cities at the same cost that you would have if you were doing it conventionally. But economic sustainability also refers to what happens once your city is built, the jobs you create and how you accommodate those into the city. And we start looking at circular economies and how we can keep that cycle going even in the operational phase of a city. Now, to go through this in a more practical sense, I would like to take you through the journey of the sustainable city through the eyes of a resident and talk about what we do behind the scenes and how it differs when you're actually living there. So, to begin with, this is the sustainable city in Dubai, the master plan. I'll quickly go through the main elements of the city and just to show how the three pillars of sustainability translate into the built environment. So if you look here, we have a predominantly residential community with about 500 units split into clusters of 100 units each. There's a reason why they're clustered as such. Having smaller neighborhoods within the larger one creates more opportunity for social engagement and for community interaction. And again, this creates a more close-knit and tight-knit community that helps people feel more more socially responsible in their living space. In this city, we've actually taken the cars out. So cars are restricted to the ring road that goes around the community and the solar-covered car parks that you see around the development. Everything else in between is actually completely pedestrianized. And in order to facilitate that and to make the space walkable, the sikas have been created in a way that they're shaded throughout most of the day, and the entire space is walkable, cyclable, and people can move around in electric run buggies. There's a shared network of buggies that you as a resident just stick your card in and can use them 24/7. Now, a community is not complete if it's not complemented by the commercial components that give people what they want and what they need so that they won't really have to leave the place. So what we have here is a community center that has everything you would need, basic amenities, restaurants, supermarket, pharmacy, offices, nursery, etc. We have a school that covers from pre-K up to grade 12. We have an autism village that really helps us with our social responsibility towards creating an inclusive community. We have an equestrian center that brings sort of a nice element to the city, but also provides the community with options for extracurricular activities. The horses as well are used for therapy for the students in our autism village. And we have the sustainable homes or the holiday homes, which offer short-term stays for people who wish to stay there. And finally, we have at number 10, the C Institute. So the C Institute is our research, education, and an innovation hub for the organization, which will be opening its doors next month, hopefully. And what you'll see running down the middle of the community is the green spine. So this is a recurring theme in all of our developments. It acts as the heart and lungs of the city, and it's where most of the social activities take place. It's very important that when we are designing our cities, these elements are taken into consideration because they help us achieve our environmental goals. So the water bodies that we have are actually gray water reservoir tanks, and they're used to irrigate the landscape. The circular features that you see are our biodomes, where we grow food that is distributed amongst the residents and sold outside the community. And you have the basic sort of amenities like sports courts, gyms, pools, etc. This is just an overview. It'll get more interesting as we go through the city. These are just some of our KPIs that have been measured in the city over the years. We have now been operational. We're going into our 7th year. Every year we take meter readings, we monitor how much energy we're consuming, how much energy we're generating, our water consumption, our waste generated, etc. And this helps us set goals for years ahead and also helps us when it comes to planning our future cities. And finally, so here we're going to go just in the day of a life of a resident. And as we go through the city, I will talk about the different features that we have taken into consideration right from the design phase. So living in the sustainable city, you're actually living in a very energy efficient home. The appliances are, we provide the appliances because they're Energy Star appliances. So we want to make it as easy as possible for the people living there to actually reduce their energy consumption. In the UAE, we never want the sun, so we close off our south-facing facades and then provide floor-to-ceiling windows in our north-facing facades. And by doing this, you maximize your indirect sunlight and minimize the amount of heat that's coming in the south. And then you complement that with solar panels to generate energy for the household. So by designing a very energy efficient envelope, users are able to reach 0 electricity bills during the winter months when we're not using the ACs. And again, it's the envelope that allows us to not use the ACs over the winter months. And since cooling in the UAE accounts for about 70% of your energy consumption, you've solved 70% of your problem just from using some passive design strategies and energy efficient cooling systems. So as I said, the cars have been taken out, so you've taken out that pollution and that noise pollution. And what you're left with is walkable streets, shaded, that allow people to get around in a much nicer way than their cars. This is how children use the space. So now that you've taken out the cars, yeah, the city becomes an extension to your gardens. So you allow for a lot more interaction with the neighbors, and it becomes a lot more of a pleasant space to be in. And as a result, people stop getting in their cars and decide to walk to the supermarket or to cycle to school. Using your car becomes actually the least efficient way of doing things. And then, as I talked about waste management, when you provide sorting bins in the houses and then you provide the sorting bins right outside of the houses, recycling becomes a natural thing to you. And because it's not enough to just tell people we need to recycle. Not everyone understands the urgency of living a more sustainable life, but what you need to do is facilitate it through design. And that's what we've done here. And as a result, we have about 90% of residents who claim that they now have started recycling, even though they didn't do it before. And we didn't have to tell anyone to do it. We just put the bins there, and they started to. And same as I mentioned with the permeable surfaces, they're there not just to keep the city cooler, but also to help us manage our stormwater. This is how children get to school in the morning. Again, other than the environmental benefit of not using your cars anymore, children get to sleep in a little bit later. You get to use your time more efficiently instead of spending that time in the car on the road, and the day just starts off better. Our school is also part of the sustainability story. So sustainability is embedded into their curriculum. That was part of the reason why we chose the operator that we chose. It's very important in your journey towards sustainable development that everything you do, from design to operation, sits within that ethos. Otherwise, you will only ever be as strong as that weakest link. So as you can see, most of the children actually come to school by bicycle. And even the facilities of the school are available to be used by the residents in after-school hours. What this does is it saves you the cost of building 2 basketball courts or 2 football pitches when you can just use the one that's already there within the school facilities. This is Sanad village. Sanad in Arabic means support. Sanad is the largest center for the treatment and rehabilitation of autism spectrum disorders, and recently has started to incorporate even other behavioral disorders. It's very important when we're looking to be sustainable that we're also looking to be inclusive and to be addressing all sorts of issues within our society. It's not just about the environment, it's also about the people, and it's also about looking at how we can address everybody in the society. And it's amazing to see how the students that go to Sanad actually engage with our community. A lot of the time they are outside the facility, engaging with the animals, with the people, through events and through other programs that are tailored for them. The main goal is to get people in Sanad to transition towards independence. Last year, we had 7 students transition into mainstream schools, and that was a very successful event for us. Yeah. Part of social sustainability is also about keeping active and leading healthier lifestyles. So it's important that we think of that as well, how to allow people to keep more active and to be healthier. We have dedicated cycling and jogging tracks, as well as a horse track linked to our equestrian center. This, again, adds to the health benefits of the community. And then our biodomes is where we grow food. In the sustainable city in Dubai, food production was introduced, but at a very sort of minimal level. But as we moved now to our sustainable city in Sharjah and Abu Dhabi and Oman, we are looking more to integrate the food production into our developments. We realize the importance of local food production and how much food miles you save, and just also how important it is for people to connect back to where their food comes from. The farm-to-table concept is now all over the world. So people recreate in all different kinds of spaces and places. A lot of our playgrounds are actually made from reclaimed wood and repurposed tires. Some of this was waste from during the construction phase. So we try as much as possible to minimize our waste. And this is a way to show you how the different pillars of sustainability are actually linked together. They don't work in silos. Everything is interlinked and nothing is an afterthought. And again, Dubai is a very metropolitan city. We don't have that many opportunities to connect with nature when you're living within the city. But that's why we thought it's very important to bring that element into our developments. So we have an animal sanctuary that is home to some rescued animals. And we just have free-roaming ducks and chickens in the development, which have added a very positive impact to the community. And finally, this is, we really try to push the concept of live, work, thrive. So a lot of the businesses that are running in the sustainable cities are actually run by the residents. We encourage local, and we encourage that interaction. So you'll always see the commercial spaces activated by the community. And there's also an economic factor to this. So the sustainable city in Dubai currently charges 0 service fees, which is not something that's done in any of the other communities in Dubai. And the way in which we did that is that we've allocated a part of the revenue that's generated from the commercial spaces in the development actually goes towards covering the service fees for the residents. So it kind of works in a cycle. You as a resident, if you make the restaurants and the shops and the supermarkets in your community work, they are paying off your service fees. So it's a win-win situation for all at the end of the day. And that's where you wind down. Here are just some of the sort of facts, let's say. Every year we update our dashboard to reflect the metrics in the city, just looking at the kind of demographics that we have, the sort of species that we've attracted. A lot of these animals or species weren't there before, but as a result of the biodiversity and the sort of ecosystem that was created, we were able to attract different species. And just some social metrics that were gathered over the years from having interviews with residents. So these are all actual real numbers reflecting real life components and or elements. From an environmental standpoint, I won't go through everything, but this is just to show how we rate ourselves from year to year. We look at how much energy we're consuming, how much we're generating, what are the carbon emissions that have been avoided as a result of what we've done. Water, for example, a typical resident in Dubai will consume about 280 liters of water per day. We've managed to bring that to 160, just through the fixtures, the water fixtures that we use, the recycling and all of that. We can go through details later if anybody has any questions. And from an economic standpoint, we're also just looking at things like how many of the students in the schools actually come from within the city, what are the kind of savings that you're achieving by living in the city. So you can save anywhere between 25 and 40,000 dirhams a year from demand-side management, from energy generation, and from avoided service fees of living there. And I'd like to conclude by playing this video because this will just sum up everything I've spoken about to show you how it translated into the built environment. It's a minute and a half.
Good morning, friends. Yesterday, CREDAI made a very bold statement in the media saying that the CREDAI members would aspire to become carbon neutral by 2050, much ahead of the COP's pledge of 2070. Estimates show that the real estate sector accounts for 40% of all environmental carbon emission. Friends, we need to be very sensitive about this and see and change our business models so that we can adopt this very, very soon. The UN has 7 SDG goals. I think Marwa has explained most of it in her presentation, so I won't take much time on this. I would request Radha to speak a few minutes before we get into the question and answer.
Yeah, it's working. I was so glad to hear yesterday when CREDAI said 2050. I know our country's target is 2070. I won't be alive by then. So 2050, I think I'll be alive. I personally believe in this, so we'll talk a little bit about what JLL believes in, but for me personally, sustainability is not just a good to have. We don't realize it, but we don't have time. And my team hears this all the time from me, and I like to quote this one. It's a very simple quote, but it's very powerful, from Barack Obama. He said, "We are the first generation to experience the pain of climate change. We are the first generation. We are also the last generation that can do anything about it." We are sitting right in the middle. You said 40% of the carbon emissions come from the built environment. We are sitting right in the middle of it. So it's not only a business thing to do, it is our responsibility. And we at JLL take this responsibility very seriously.
So Radha, I would like to ask you the first question. How do you see India's real estate landscape changing with reference to sustainability and ESG?
Thanks, Mr. Patodia. That's a really good question. So like we said, while our country's target is 2070, I think it has been the private sector which has taken the lead. And in the real estate space, it started with the occupiers who took the lead and who put the pressure, and hence green certification, etc. came. Green certification, energy management, cost savings is now par for the course. If you see our commercial buildings, for instance, more than 40% are green certified. And if you see new buildings built after 2016, more than 60 to 70% are green certified. So this is par for the course. what we're seeing now, how it's changing, we were talking about energy management. She showed about the waste segregation. So we're seeing even in residential buildings and commercial buildings, things like waste segregation, water management, water recycling, EV chargers, zero plastics, green chemicals being used for cleaning. So we're seeing this in the commercial and residential space. But this is only the E part. She also talked about S, which I think is really, really critical. And it's so heartening to see the S focus coming. We're seeing more open spaces in all the new residential buildings, even in commercial buildings and campuses, sports facilities. We are seeing, for example, builders in NCR. We all know what the air quality index is, right? Last week, I would not have wanted to be in Delhi. It was over 350. So NCR builders, for instance, are now the entire design, or whether it's having the air conditioning inside or those air purifiers, all this is part of S. So all this has happened in the last 5 to 6 years.
Marwa, question to you that you have put in lot of sustainability interventions in your Diamond City in Dubai. What are the challenges you've faced in bringing these to life? And are you getting in premium in terms of sale or demand once you've done this sustainable development?
Thank you for your question. So to address the first part, challenges. Now, from a design perspective, the challenges were more related. There's two. There's one externally. It's to do with legislation, authorities, governments, etc. At the end of the day, whatever we design has to be approved by these bodies. Now, depending on where you are in the world, sometimes the legislations are not in place, or you have some sort of resistance from the authority bodies. Luckily, in Dubai, this was an opportunity for us to do something different, and Dubai is always at the forefront of such things. But as an example, when we designed the city with the solar panels, and all our calculations were based on the fact that there will be a system, but that legislation wasn't in place at the time. So we had to sit in front of DEWA, Dubai Electricity Water and Authority, and have that conversation, open that conversation. Now, fortunately for us, by the time the city was up and running, they had put that legislation in place. But that's not the case in every city that we're going to be in. And that changes everything. So in Sharjah, for example, we don't have net metering. So the amount of solar that's going to be installed will be different, and the kind of cooling strategies we use will be different. So that's one example. Now internally, the challenge is finding the right balance of low-tech and high-tech solutions to be able to build the city. Because you can throw in all the technology in there, whether anything. Like, I'll give you an example, battery storage. A lot of times people ask us, well, why don't you just have batteries and then you won't have to rely on the grid? The thing is, batteries are still not commercially viable. So I can throw them in, but then my city is going to cost me so much. So is it really sustainable if I can't replicate? And who's going to buy if it's too expensive? So the challenge is finding that perfect equation where you're achieving your goals, but it still makes commercial sense for you as a developer and for the end user. And your second part of the question was after we implemented those? Yeah, well, so today the occupancy rate in the sustainable city is 100%, with a 15% waiting list of people wanting to buy in the city. I think that for us was an indicator that we were doing something right. It definitely helps. The cost of building the city was not higher, but the market is driven by supply and demand, and today the prices are going up simply because people are demanding it. Thank you.
just to that point, in India as well, we will pay what I call a green premium for living in apartments. Buildings have more open space, where you get more facilities, etc., versus the old world. So I think while green premium is something which is really new in India, nobody talks of green premiums, brown discounts. It's going to start happening. It's definitely going to start.
Nice thought, Radha. So how much of carbon emission were you able to reduce by doing this kind of development?
I think the number was on the presentation. I don't have the
okay,
number off
okay,
by heart.
okay.
But yeah, definitely there was a lot of avoided carbon in the operation phase. But I was also having this conversation earlier, in that we really need to be strict with ourselves. There's a lot of greenwashing that's happening nowadays. You know, if Tesla goes out and says, we have a zero carbon car, that may be true operationally, but how much carbon was emitted to put that car together? And I think what we're looking now is, when we start looking at net zero carbon, like with the Institute, which is the last building that I told you would be opening its doors next month, that building plans to be net zero carbon. But by that, we mean we are going to offset all the carbon emissions that happen during the design and construction phase, and then we look at the operation and keeping that net zero.
Thank you. Radha, one last question to you. What is the role, in your view, can IPCCs like JL play in this whole sustainable development in the time to come?
Like I said, it's our responsibility, so it's a very critical role. And going beyond helping with green certifications, I think as an IPC, what we are doing is, we are helping developers, occupiers, etc., go through their entire net zero carbon journey. We'll map it for you because it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And then our project development services teams, our property asset management teams help you execute it. One is retrofitting of existing buildings and even new buildings which are coming up. Experts actually say that given the strong urbanization that is happening, we talked about India going to become the third largest economy in the world soon. There is going to be a lot of energy emission. And they say 2/3 of the infrastructure that we will need is still to be built. So there's a lot of work that we can do, and JLL is right in the middle of that. We've got into strategic MOUs with Tata Power, with Siemens. We have got into a first industry coalition, Zintio, which is Build Ahead, which is with Lodha, JSW, Godrej Constructions, etc. India is also the second largest producer of steel and cement, which is also an energy guzzler. So how to provide carbon neutral material as well to developers and builders like yourselves. I actually have a proposal, if I may, and it came into my mind when you announced yesterday. I think we should have an industry coalition, and maybe, Baman, we can discuss this offline. We can have the key stakeholders from the industry. We can have non-industry key stakeholders like Tata Power, Siemens, Shell. We should create a green mission coalition which represents this industry. I think it can achieve two things. One, we have like a whole host of developers here, and then there are and each developer is in a different evolution on sustainability. So maybe someone like you, Baman, or Mr. Razak at Prestige, talk about best practices which have worked for you, and share with the broader group. And the second thing I think this coalition can achieve is talking to the government. Now, if you want off-site renewable, you will not get it in every state. You can't set up a captive solar plant in all states for your campuses. I think we need a group which can also lobby with the government. This could be really, really powerful. And I want to leave with one mantra: reduce, reuse, and recycle. If there's one mantra you guys can go home with, please, in your personal life and at work, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Radha, can you help?
I feel very passionate about it.
No, nice. Do you feel that IPCs can help monetize carbon credits with the developers as a process? Because
Yes,
a lot
we
of monetization possibilities
Yeah.
are there.
So we have a global team, and we're doing this in Europe and in the West. And if you feel there is a demand for it, we can do that.
Now, why don't we put up a paper for all the developers to how they can do this, how can start this process so that, that we can achieve this carbon neutrality much faster.
Okay, we can take that as a takeaway, but we should definitely discuss about that coalition. I think it can be really powerful. It's not there in India right now.
Friends, I think we have to close the session. I think it's one of the biggest beginning of today's session today. And I think all of us need to think about this and take this back home and see how we can get into this carbon neutrality thing and start a new movement of real estate development in the country. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you for this enlightening session, Mrs. Marwa and Ms. Radha. I would now like to thank, of course, JLL for being our knowledge partner for this session. With that, now I'd like to invite our CREDAI Women's Wing members, Ms. Sophia Firdaus to felicitate Ms. Radha Dheer and Ms. Sarah Jacob to felicitate Ms. Marwa Nahlawi.
Excuse me, there's one question Manoj Gaur has.
Can we have a mic in the audience, please?
Hi, good morning. Manoj got this side. My question to Ms. Marwa, a typical developer's question. What FSI you achieve in this, your township? I think in not more than 1 or less than 1. Floor area ratio.
The FAR.
FAR.
0.4 actually.
How much?
0.4.
0.4.
Yes.
So it
That's
is not
usually-
sustainable.
It's
in India.
actually. No, it depends. Honestly, the way we look at things, the density of our community, it's also why we don't build high. In order for all of our strategies to work in terms of our waste management and all of that, this is how it works for us in the communities that we build. That's not to say that you can't achieve the same in different developments. So we have a few pipeline projects where we're reaching higher FARs because we have more apartments, let's say, but that just changes the way we tackle all the different strategies of food, energy, water, etc.
And one more question. A lot of ground space is dedicated for the parking. Don't you think you make a basement that is more feasible in this environment where sun is lot of sun and space for your buildings?
Yes. So this depends on what's happening with our solar panels. Today, the reason we kept the parking on the surface is because the solar panels on the surface parking are actually covering 100% of our energy needs in the public realm. So today, street lighting, gyms, pools, the biodomes, all of that, we pay nothing. It's all covered by the solar panels. However, having said that, in sustainable city in Yas Island, that will be coming up, construction will start in a few months. We've done the parking on 2 levels because there will not be net metering. So the solar panels will be used to feed into a cooling plant, and so we didn't need as many solar panels as we did in Dubai. So it all depends. And we're working on one in a new plot now where all the parking might be underground. And the space above it will be actually open park spaces. So
Great. Thank
it
you.
depends. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Again, can I please have the CREDAI Women's Wing members, Sophia Firdaus, on stage to felicitate Ms. Radha Dheer, and Sarah Jacob as well to felicitate Ms. Marwa. Thank you very much for this enlightening session indeed, and of course, a great way to start our morning. Moving on, I want to give a special mention to Jacqua, which has been our grand affair partner, has ensured our key sessions are lit by Jacqua's special light. Hence, it gives me immense pleasure to invite on stage Mr. Rajesh Mehra, Director and Promoter, Jacqua Group. Sir, can we please have you on stage to say a few words? Mr. Rajesh Mehra.
Thanks. Shall I start? Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to one and all. First of all, on behalf of Jacquard Group, I'm extremely grateful to the CREDAI Governing Committee for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts and views before this August gathering. Today, we all are proudly celebrating our 75th independence year. Ever since attaining freedom from the colonial powers, thanks to the efforts and sacrifices made by our leaders and the people of our great nation, we have grown and developed in almost every sphere. Being a democratic, independent country, we have all the freedom to express ourselves and convey our thoughts. However, what finally matters is the economic independence as well, which means that we are not dependent on the other countries and are self-reliant. As a country blessed with the best of the natural resources and abundant manpower, we should be able to service our country with everything we may require and also make a mark in the global arena. For any nation to be truly strong, the economic development achieved through self-reliance is the ultimate goal to be achieved. I strongly think that as a nation we have moved on the path of growth in a very significant manner due to the numerous development-oriented policies and measures brought by our governments. But the one factor which has contributed to the numerous successes we have gained, especially during the recent years, is the Make in India initiative launched by the government. When our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, announced this initiative, what I personally think is that the spirit behind his thought was not just to make products in India, but more importantly, to invoke the confidence in ourselves that we have the capacity and capabilities to produce everything and anything which is required by our country. It was more of a message to believe in ourselves and come forward to be self-reliant. This is where we all can see that over the last few years, India has made some incredible progress, thereby attracting a lot of appreciation and respect from all over the world. For a considerable period of time, a strong thought prevailed upon us that probably we cannot do certain things due to lack of technical knowledge, access, and setup, and only the advanced nations in the world can do so. There was kind of a mindset that it will take us many, many years to match with the developed nations. Someone has rightly said, therefore, it doesn't matter that thousands of people may believe in you till the time we believe in ourselves. I firmly believe that the Make in India initiative taken by our government has been a significant game changer in encouraging the setup of best-in-class manufacturing infrastructure in the country to rewrite India's growth narrative. This is what will make us self-reliant and finally usher in the true development of people and finally of our great nation. Consequently, the industrial sector has grown significantly and put India on the global map, attracting worldwide attention to its strong manufacturing capabilities. This is the reason that in one of the recent papers released by Morgan Stanley, they said that India is now poised to become the factory of the world. In fact, taking cue from the government's initiatives, the Indian industry has fully applied itself to create the required environment, adding numerous strengths and executing the things in a professional and structured way to meet the needs and expectations of the global customers. In the last few years, Make in India initiative has gained stupendous momentum owing to the fundamentals of self-belief and self-pride. In these sectors, India and Indians have shown us that yes, we can overcome our self-doubts and move ahead of the rest of the world. I would like to dwell upon a few of our most notable achievements recently made. The foremost is the economic growth. Today, India has become the fifth largest economy and number 3 in purchasing power parity after US and China, which is over 10 trillion. Being the biggest democracy, India is today's biggest hope for the world, which will drive the world economy for the next 2-3 decades. Of lately, we have started producing very critical items like semiconductors, ultra-tech electronics, and highly complex engineering products with an unbeatable quality edge. This has finally shifted the world's focus, and winds are now clearly blowing in India's favor. On the infrastructure sector, development has been happening in a major way. Last year, the Government of India launched 103 trillion rupees infra projects to augment India's infrastructure for economic development. Given the unprecedented infrastructure development which is taking place in India now, where the government has pledged to invest a mind-boggling rupees 140 lakh crores in the next few years on highways, railways, air and seaports, it will enable a significant amount of connectivity for the people, resulting into expansion of the urban footprint across the country. As we all can see, this would lead to a massive demand for the real estate sector. It is indeed a great opportunity in the waiting for all of us to execute these projects of our internal capabilities. It would be a substantial step towards a proud and self-reliant India. In the field of health, after successfully running the biggest immunization polio drive for some time, the recently made in India COVID vaccination program of administering 200 crore vaccine jabs in the shortest time is an unparalleled achievement in the history of humankind. This success became truly memorable as we are the only nation to export this vaccine while the pandemic was at its peak, unlike many developed countries who just shied away from this responsibility. On the digital front, India is a role model in the digital transactions for the world and a shining example of the nation's collective resolve to unlock its potential for clean and equated growth. Over 48 billion real-time digital transactions, almost 3 times of China and 6.5 times of that of the UK, Germany, France, and Canada combined, have shown India's capabilities in creating and using homegrown applications. In so many, there is no doubt that intellectually we are far superior than other races or civilizations. This is very much evident from our creative bent of mind as we mostly try to do the things differently. Numerous Indian professionals are making the whole nation proud by being in leadership positions in several Fortune 500 companies. What is extremely encouraging is, especially the younger talent of our country, who have a great urge to do the things differently. This is amply endorsed by the fact that in the last few years, the number of startups that have happened in our country is by and far one of the highest in the world. And why not to talk of the Indian real estate sector, which has contributed tremendously to the growth of our nation. The amount of real estate construction which is happening across the country is a magnificent milestone achievement in itself. According to the latest statistics, our real estate market size is expected to touch about $1 trillion in the next few years. Here also, after having established themselves strongly in India, there are many Indian developers who are now constructing landmark projects abroad as well, rubbing shoulders with the